I want to show you this. Tucker Carlson said this, and he was talking about UFOs, and I want to get your reaction to what he says here.
These are my views, okay? They can't be proven, but I think they're informed views. The phenomenon is real. It's been recorded for thousands of years. We know that. There's something buzzing around us in the skies, but also under the oceans, we now know, and probably underground as well. So it's real. The government's lied about it a million different ways, probably for a million different reasons, for at least 80 years. That's also confirmed. They're lying about it now. Who knows what their motives are? And they're also trying to keep a lot of the stuff from being disclosed. That's true.
Yes.
So to those people, it's like, it's a psyop. Well, yeah, everything's a psyop. But I know for a dead certain fact, and it's provable, that, say, Mitch McConnell and Speaker Johnson and people who should, and a couple committee chairmen who should all know better, are trying to prevent the UAP Disclosure Act of 2023 from taking effect in a meaningful way. So they are trying to hide it still. That's a fact. My own view is that these are not aliens. There's no evidence that they've come from somewhere else. We would probably know. We've got a lot of technology that's watching what comes in and out of the atmosphere, and there's no evidence of that. I think they've been here forever. This is my view. Again, it can't be proven, but I'm just telling you, after a lot of conversations, I think it's likely that the U.S. government has had contact with these, direct contact, and over a period of years. I find that really disturbing, because and a bunch of other things that are highly distressing that I can't prove, and so I'm certainly not going to throw them out there. But I'll tell you this. I've talked to a lot of people about this, not because I've never been interested in UFOs until like 5 years ago. And I was like, wait, this is real. What is this? Why aren't we talking about this? I'm just like coming at it from a totally idiotic, I don't know anything, curious position, which is my normal posture on everything. And so I've talked to a lot of people. And my view is that this is my opinion, that there are things about this that are really disturbing. And while I hate any kind of government secrecy, and if I could prove any of this, I would say it immediately, consequences be damned, I do sort of understand why they don't want to let this stuff out. It's not about, we've got fragments of one of these crafts at a Lockheed, facility in California, and we have biologics from the craft. Everyone knows that that's likely true. Well, it's certainly true that they have the, pieces of this stuff. Yep. But I think it's likely that it's darker than that, and that the U.S. government is, I say the U.S. government, people in the U.S. government, not the U.S. government, but there are it's the largest human organization in history. Parts of it, have knowledge that is very, very disturbing. And I personally strongly think that there's a spiritual component to this that I don't understand and will not pretend to understand. But I think it's very clear that there's a spiritual component to this. That's one of the reasons the Vatican, and I'm not Catholic, but has been involved in this for over 100 years, has an observatory, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it's pretty obvious that these are not men from Mars. I think that was a psyop, because I think the truth is a little bit wilder and has deeper implications just than that.
So what do you think he's talking about there? Go ahead.
Well, I have to be really careful here because I'm friends with Tucker. I hang out with his son, go hunting with him and shooting and go visit him and things like that. In fact, I invited him to come out to Florida sometime next month, and I just love Tucker, love to death. He thought I was a psychopath 15 years ago for saying 9/11 was an inside job in Building 7. And then his children, who were in college and stuff, and out of college, started bringing him stuff and saying, no, Dad, this guy's pretty good. We like him. So he came to visit me 11, 12 years ago and kind of halfway apologized. He said, I thought you were a sociopath and just saying all this stuff for ratings, but I found out you're a really good guy. And then Tucker really listens to me a lot now, and it's also other people. And from my research of the globalists and what they're really doing in DMT research in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and that also goes to a connection to a family friend who was the deputy head of a major psychedelic research group in San Francisco. And when I first heard this, I was about 7 years old on a trip in the back of my mom's Volkswagen Beetle with her and her friend to a week-long trip with the girls to Arkansas, where they went on a tourist trip, checking out all the cool sites there. Really beautiful there. And I'm sitting in the back with my Etch-a-Sketch and comic books, listening to this lady, CIA, talk about how they're basically astronauts, and they put them on DMT drips This is before anybody was talking about DMT, and they go in and they model this veil or the other dimensions that are there, and they then communicate with these entities, and they come back and then write notes about it. And then I did later research once I grew up and knew about this. They also have volunteers where they actually stop the heart and kill people for a couple minutes so that they can have these out-of-body experiences. Because what it is, third dimensionally, they call it spiritual. That's what the ancients called it. What the globalists actually believe, what the evidence is there's 12 dimensions we know about just in this verse, which there's multiverses. And the third dimension is the first material zone and kind of a jump point, kind of a doorway or a wormhole. And all the hundreds of billions of galaxies that they've already photographed. And now they know the Big Bang goes back further, and there's other Big Bang stuff coming in, and it isn't what they thought. And it really looks like the tail of a propulsion system is going out the back of something. And that's basically what these interdimensional aliens are, but they're not aliens. They're from here. And so I told Joe Rogan that like 6 years ago on his show, and that was not in the news then. And 6 months later, a big professor came out and said, yeah, in Japan, England, and the U.S. and San Francisco, for decades, it's like astronauts. We take the DMT and they go in and they map all this. And the ancients would take a bunch of drugs and get in the middle of a circle. They thought it protected them. Solomon, the Egyptians, all of it. And a genie or a demon would appear. And they usually wanted the sacrifice of blood to give you knowledge. And you can read this in the Grand Grimoire and Black Magic books that are, thousands of years old, translated into French. And so that's where all this comes from with psychedelics and, and the ancients and then all the other cultures taking these drugs, is that they believe they're talking to the gods and the servants of the gods. But the rule is the higher level angels or good guys don't interfere in the third dimensional manifestation of our bodies. That is a dimensional manifestation or signature of something much larger. So this is kind of the tether of what we are and a signature or footprint that's interdimensionally there. It's way more complex than that, but basically that's where these people have these experiences. That's where people that have never taken drugs, have no mental illness in their family, will walk into their bedroom and a poltergeist will appear or won't and will throw you up onto the ceiling or will put giant bloody scratch marks across your chest. And so more and more people are having this experience. And so they didn't believe in God, they didn't believe in aliens till they get demonically attacked. And I'm not going to say who this has happened to, but let's just say it's happening to a lot of people, and they're suddenly discovering all this and trying to then say, what did this to me? I'm not drinking, I'm not on drugs, and I just got, it's usually when you're alone, and these things will attack you. And so that's really what's going on. And so now they have these DMT retreats in Costa Rica and in Peru, and they'll go to
ayahuasca.
Yeah, ayahuasca and DMT retreats. Yeah, ayahuasca retreats, yes. Well, they'll do both. A lot of ibogaine, you name it. But mainly ayahuasca, you're right. They will go to these temple sites and pay more money because the temple sites, you don't get little elves that are kind of NPCs of the other dimensions, okay? And they look like elves, take their mask off. It's like gray aliens. It's kind of a robot that's everywhere. If you go to the ancient sacrificial sites or Stonehenge or places where there's these portals, they believe, or because so much blood's been spilled, you don't talk to that. You might talk to something that's like an angel, something that looks like a 400-foot praying mantis. And what's happening is, and I've talked to big talk show hosts that have gone and done this, you're there with 30, 40 people, and you take the drugs, and everyone sees the aliens come out of the forest up to the temple, and you're all seeing the aliens at the same time. It's not a group hallucination. You've lifted the interdimensional veil. Because here's the deal. They say your eyes see a very narrow spectrum of the light spectrum. And there's electromagnetic, there's infrared, there's thousands of different types of things coming in that your optic nerve doesn't see. But the truth is, a bloodhound is like 1,000 times better than a human. The average dog, 300 times or so. If we could smell everything a bloodhound smelled, we'd go crazy. So it's the same thing. Our optic nerve is tuned to this environment and this evolutionary plane. But the truth is, the eyes and the brain are actually, that's why a cat will look over you and there's nothing there and it'll see something and run out of the room, because cats have a larger optic thing. So do dogs, not as much as a cat. Cats have better eyes, dogs have better noses.
Slit eyes.
Cats have better noses than we do. So what's happening what's happening is we're in a universe that's teeming with energy, teeming with consciousnesses, but we're dialed down because you couldn't have a wife or a husband and go plant corn in the field and, do your work if you could see all the different things interdimensionally that are there. And so I naturally have a 21-inch neck and have really bad sleep apnea since I was a kid, because I guess you almost call it a birth defect. I mean, my head is huge and my neck's huge for my body. But the point is that I've had 2 sleep studies done. I get down to 63% oxygen, and there's only at night. That causes brain damage long term. But there's only one thing in the studies that will bring you into a DMT experience, and that's low oxygen dreams. Well, I have low oxygen dreams. So since I was a small child, and especially when I grew up and got bigger, I don't dream in REM sleep the last 2 hours like most people. I dream from the time I go to bed till the time I wake up 8 hours later. And a lot of it is a brain function, going over the data, creating scenarios for the brain.
Nicotine also, Alex.
Pardon?
Nicotine, when I would fly on planes, I remember I used to knock myself out with Xanax and put a nicotine patch on, and nicotine will make you dream very vividly. So
absolutely, because it constricts the blood vessels and does a bunch of other stuff. So yes, and so I'm not trying to get mumbo jumbo. I don't go to the churches and believe that stuff. I know what I objectively know. I know the government's studying it. And, I told Tucker some private stuff. He told me some private stuff. He asked me on his show to go ahead and say it. And I said, I'm not going to tell those stories, Tucker, because he said, why not? Tell it right now. During a break, he was, we were taking a piss. And I said, Tucker, why don't you tell your stories? He said, touche. But I tell you what, when Tucker tells his stories, I'll tell mine. And I'm giving you a little bit of a hint here. And I've not broken confidence or anything here. I'm just saying that more and more people are having these experiences. I mean, you might be driving down the road and you're not on drugs and it's 8 a.m. in the morning and you have no history of mental illness. You've never seen an hallucination, both optical or olfactory. And you look over in your seat and there is a demon sitting right there in the seat saying, I'm going to kill you. I mean, that is going on. And so 95% of this interview has been stuff we can prove. They're going to control our minds. They're going to do all this. They're going to make us eat bugs. And so here's the best info I have. They didn't meet the aliens at Roswell. They didn't go, and Eisenhower didn't meet with the aliens, at Hangar Area 51. What they're doing is they're getting interdimensional information from lower level beings that are older than us or been around. The transistor, all of this just came into being, and it's not coming in crash spacecrafts. That's what they're giving them, but they'll literally tell the government when they're in these DMT operations, okay, bring in 10 kids and cut their heads off for me. And you can say, well, they want you to do evil things. They like it. They like the pain. Or is it just to see if we'll do what they tell them? And then they go, okay, open your mind. I'm giving you a design for something. And then they're giving us a design to build a system to enslave us. It's kind of like the movie, cheesy 1990 sci-fi movie, Species, where they've got a radio telescope aimed at 50 light years away or whatever it was, and they get sent a DNA sequence from aliens. And they go, let's inject this into a female egg and see what happens. Well, they just sent the blueprints for us to kill ourselves and for an alien to take over. And so basically the aliens don't come in flying saucers from Mars. They don't come up out of the Pacific, rim, from the hollow earth. They come through the interdimensional vortex and then communicate to our brain that is operating in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th, and even 11th and 12th dimensions. And so the invasion, ancients would call it spiritual, but it's not spiritual. In every culture, I mean, they got the Dugon tribe and, tribes in Africa that said up there in the sky is this pole star, multi-star, and it's got 7 planets around it, and they came from this one. And no telescope until like 70 years ago could even see it. And then it's what the Africans said that was, and they say aliens came from here and taught us about all this stuff, but they also told us about these other interdimensional things that are here to destroy us. And see, I don't know, but all I know, and then you see Prometheus, the movie, they find the cave drawers, the cave drawings of Sirius and all that, and tell you the story. None of the globalists really believe that some salts in the ocean turned into a cell, turned into a sponge, turned into a fish, crawled out on the land, crawled back in. No, these are designs that have been made before. These are manifestations of the universe. So just like in leaves or in crystals, you see the same designs. And then in our bodies, you see the same designs. And there was a French mathematician, I forget his name, a quantum mechanics expert. I saw this on PBS when I was a little kid. I looked it up later. It's true. He postulated before we were even in space, I think like 80 years ago, that when we finally were able to fly a probe over Saturn, either the North or South Pole, that an interdimensional size of the gas giant, this is quantum mechanics stuff, I don't understand it, would manifest a hexagon on the top. And he predicted that it would be ice on the top with the frozen gas. And when they flew Voyager over it, there was a perfect hexagon on the top. And then when another probe came back later, because it went on past, and went under it, there was exactly what the quantum mechanics physicists said. And it gets into the observation where they'll have a lead block sealed, and they'll have a neutron or a particle, and if you're observing it, it won't go through. But then for some reason, this has been duplicated thousands of times, if you're not observing it, it suddenly jumps across. It wants you to know something. And then they've also noticed that if humans observe electrons and quarks, that literally, so it's kind of like George Lucas, but not in a cheesy way, because it's so subatomic that it changes observance, changes what's happening. I mean, it's absolutely insane. And they've hooked up electron microscopes, spectrometers in Japan to say, well, maybe it's because there's humans near it. And then they'll hook it up, and then they'll have all these humans in the room around it, but not looking at it because they can't see it. And then as soon as somebody in Russia or Japan or America, back to Japan, looks at it through the electron microscope. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm not the quantum mechanics person. I just know that's what's going in unified field theory. I've read a lot of books on it, into all of this. And so it's there. There's a whole, and look, maybe our archetypal development is we're scared of big cave cats and cave bears that used to eat our ancestors. And when, you ever notice a kid at night is more scared in their room than out in the street around thugs, because where did primates usually get eaten? It would be in their nest or in their cave, coming out of the cave mouth, because that's usually where. So kids are always, little kids that have good instincts are always at night. Oh, close the door. Oh, what's in the door? As a kid, I remember like doorways at night were going into it, because that's our instinct. So maybe these things don't look like big demons with teeth and eyes and all this. Maybe that's the only way our brain processing it. When it has a wider spectrum we're taking in, it only processes a tiny bit, but we're getting it all. The subconscious and unconscious is actually decoding it all. So that's what's a cat seeing? How does it decipher it? Because all we have is the archetypes of our genetic ancestors imprinted on us to be able to decode things. So again, maybe demons really don't look like demons to themselves, but to us, that's the only way we're able to see them. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I follow what you're saying for sure.
Have you done DMT ever?
No. Here's the deal. I don't want to take it because I remember reading about DMT and ayahuasca experiences and going, well, I have those experiences every night. Crystal cities, floating pyramids, beautiful stuff, like big watchmen angels that it didn't happen all the time. It happens, maybe once a month, that tell me what's going to happen and just give me profound knowledge and profound sense of completion and peace. And it's that archetype of the watchman or the angels, and everybody, and the ancients saying, this angel came to me and told me this. So I have DMT-like experiences, and before I knew how to control it, a lot of it was bad stuff. I've seen, when I read the books about it, well, I've seen that in my dreams. Well, I just made the decision that I'm with the higher power, I'm with God, I control my spirit, I control my energy, I change the channel, I'm going to go to Valhalla. I'm going to go see stuff that looks like 1,000 times more powerful than Hawaii and the most beautiful rainbow you ever saw. And so I know it's real because and again, it's just like observing a particle. If you're watching it, it won't do it. hundreds of times in my life, God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, when I was a kid, would like I have a digital clock in the kitchen. I'd wake up and I'd say, it is 7:15. And I would run down to the kitchen, and every time it was whatever time it was. And maybe I wake up at 5 a.m. and I'd say, it's 5:04. It was always this thing saying, go look at the clock. I'm here. I want you to know this is real. And then I had dreams of getting mugged. And about 6 months later, I did get mugged by the same homeless white guy in the purple and green striped shirt. He had a knife. Maybe I was going to get killed. Interdimensionally, the angels warned me. So I knew when it happened. I was a teenager, wasn't on drugs, but I was on a beer run to get beer in Dallas where they'd sell it to underage. And, this happened. And I had a lot of other dreams of things that came true. And so I guess I'm starting to share a lot of this because people need to know there's things bigger than the New World Order. And they want you shuttered, hating yourself, not knowing what a beautiful creation you are, not knowing you have free will, so you won't use your potential. And Tucker Carlson has had an awakening. He's had an awakening that good and evil exist. And before, he wasn't sure about that. And so he's had experiences now that have shown him how real this is. And other people are going to have it because there's something big. And is it us? They've proven the sixth sense. That's how you know when somebody's looking at you. You're walking through the forest, nobody's around. You feel somebody looking at you, turn, you look 20 yards away, a guy standing there looking right at you. Or, everybody knows that. And they've proven, that's how butterflies can fly from Canada all the way to Mexico, even though they were hatched in Canada and never been to Mexico, and fly to the same tree that their ancestor was laid in, and then they fly back up to Canada, die, lay the eggs, die, and fly perfectly back to the tree. Scientists don't know how to do it. Well, no, they have they do know now. They have magnetic cones in them, little bitty tiny magnetic cones in their brain that operate off of electromagnetic lines. And now we know the ancients were into that, and we know that humans have hundreds of times per density the magnetic cones of a butterfly. Not just that their brain's so much tinier, per brain structure, we have way more than that. Well, why do we have that? A butterfly has a tiny bit and can navigate 3,000 miles perfectly to the tree that their parent was born in, okay? How do they do that? Well, it's the same thing. How do ducks fly from Canada all the way, down to South Texas and then land in the same pond where their parents were born? How do they do this over and over and over and over again? Because the cones aren't just following the lines. The cones are pre-programmed to carry out an operation. So instincts aren't just some vague thing. It's a compressed knowledge, but you can't handle all your ancestral knowledge that Frank Herbert wrote about in his first book. That's excellent. An average person cannot handle that. All that knowledge of all your ancestors, it would be too blinding, too much. Just like you, and that's proven, that's there. Just like you can't see everything around you because you couldn't handle that, because it's too distracting. It's like trying to conduct, threading a needle while you've got 1,000 people banging drums around you and giving you electroshocks. Or it's like trying to write a novel 100 feet under the water with a typewriter while great white sharks are trying to eat you. So all this stuff's around us, where we're like a larval egg of what humans are about to become, of the butterfly analogy. We're in a pubescent or larval pupa stage, swirling around in the universe and not aware of all the danger and things that are going on because we can't handle it.
Okay, wait, I have a question. Why would it just be interdimensional? Why wouldn't it be yes and? Because people say, oh, it's preposterous, it would come from other planets. How is that more? I'm sure the interdimensional thing could possibly be true, but the interplanetary thing is crazier than that? How would that be?
Well, I'll go back to Frank Herbert, which is out of quantum mechanics. This is actually what the quantum mechanics experts believe. Let's take this piece of paper and say, right here is Betelgeuse or some star, however
is this
many
the tunneling thing? We all know this.
I'll show people. Let's say there's a galaxy 50 light years away, okay? Okay, and here's Earth, and here's this planet that we want to go to, okay? Now, if you're trying to go 50 light years with current technology, even if we had light speed, it'll take you 50 years to get there. Now, interdimensionally, all you got to do is fold the piece of paper interdimensionally, if you're able to do this, and that's the theory of the third dimension. There's higher dimensions, and then all you do is punch a hole, and you're basically instantly there. So that's like somebody, before they invented the wheel, looking at a chariot and saying, what does that do? So see, take you 50 years to get there with the technology we don't even have yet. But if you interdimensionally travel there, you're there instantly by folding. That's fold space.
Right.
Understand?
How's that different? All right.
Okay. All right. So before we let you go, I want to, I'm really into Carl Jung. He talked about a collective unconscious, which kind of parallels what you're saying about the knowledge of everything that came before us. And he would have these visions in his dreams that were symbols of things that he didn't know what they meant, but he knew they were important. And then he would read books about the alchemical process, which was all about psychic gold, turning psychic lead into psychic gold. And he would find out, 1,000 years ago, they knew what this symbol meant. And why would it show up in my dream? And if I didn't know what it meant already, well, because you already have access to that knowledge. It's called the collective unconscious. That was his greatest contribution to psychology. And I think
that's absolutely true. So you can't really turn lead into gold, even though with some of these big cyclotrons,
Right.
they can do it now. Small piece, but it takes a lot of money in energy. But you can, with advanced knowledge we already have, create the gold of new inventions. And I'm saying there's bad actors that are trying to get us to build things that are destructive because they want to hurt us and get rid of us because of whatever destiny we have or whatever's unfolding. I'm just speculating there. I wish I had crew in the studio because they've been showing for about a month this AI rendering of castles and mountains and the universe and how it changes. And when I saw them play that, I went, that's where I go. That's one of the things I've seen basically exactly. Well, here's AI scraping the art and visions of billions of people. And then you put into it the cosmos, heaven, and then it literally shows you what the collective unconscious already has. So that is the power of AI, is that it scrapes fragments of what we're doing in the conscious and unconscious that bubble up to the conscious. And then it is, in many of these things I've seen, manifesting some really deep, powerful stuff. There's no crew in there, is there? Too bad everybody's probably gone, or I'm going to send you this, Jimmy.
Okay.
And I'm telling you, the stuff I see in these dreams is just like this, but even more blazing and gorgeous and just, way more powerful. But when I saw this for the first time, I was like, whoa, that's very similar to what I see. And I'd never seen art like that, never seen culture like that, never seen what I'd seen, one of the things I see. And then AI, though, it saw it because it's scraping millions of people.
Come see us do a live stand-up show. We'll be in Venice, California, Palmdale, California, Omaha, Des Moines, Milwaukee, Lansing, Bend, Oregon, Portland, Oregon, Seattle, Washington, Boston, Massachusetts, and we're going to Europe. Do you live in Europe? We're going to be there. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for all those tickets.